Okay, we do prostration. Namo Manju Jiri Namo Zo Jiri Namo Namo Jiri Zo Namo Manju Jiri Namo Zo Jiri Namo Namo Jiri Zo Namo Manju Jiri Namo Zo Jiri Namo Namo Jiri Zo Che dang zu ge chung nang la jiang zhu ma nu nan de gen zu ji da ge chen ye ji be cong nang ji zhuo la ben jie sang ge zhu ba zhu che dang zu ge chung nang la jiang zhu ma nu nan de gen zu ji da ge chen ye ji be cong nang ji zhuo la ben jie sang ge zhu ba zhu che dang zu ge chung nang la jiang zhu ma nu nan de gen zu ji da ge chen ye ji be cong nang ji zhuo la ben jie sang ge zhu ba zhu北域虚心没多长，让灵犀你的剑马的，三界心都没在我也，若给能到心那去把手，我若然那门大拉冈的呀大呀米。Please adjust your sitting posture according to the 7 meditative postures of Vairocana. Think, all sentient beings have been my mothers. All sentient beings have been my mothers, not just once, but numberless times. All sentient beings are as kind as my mother in this life. Even though all kind of other sentient beings want happiness and do not even want a small suffering, due to mistakenly engaging with objects of adoptions and abandonment, they do not experience any happiness but suffering. In our minds, sincerely cultivate loving kindness towards all kind mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mother sentient beings were to have excellent happiness and the causes of excellent happiness that are virtues. May they have excellent happiness and its causes. I will cause them to have excellent happiness and its causes. Lama deity, please bless me to be able to do so. Next, we cultivate compassion towards all suffering mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if all mother sentient beings were free from all suffering and the causes of suffering that are non-virtues. May they be free from all suffering and its causes. I will cause them to be free from all suffering and its causes. Lama deity, please bless me to be able to do so. Next, we cultivate bodhicitta. First, we ask ourselves, who should take the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and lower realms? I should take the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and lower realms. Even though I should take the responsibility, I do not have the ability to place them in the state of perfect complete enlightenment now. Who has such ability? Those perfect complete Buddhas have the abilities to do so. Therefore, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve the precious state of enlightenment. Next, we meditate on the meaning of emptiness for a short while. The self and the aggregates neither exist as inherently one nor inherently different, thus is empty of inherent existence. Set a good motivation. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. For this, I will listen to the holy teaching and practice properly in order to benefit sentient beings.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you. Kuchina. Change the market was cut to such a trade. You change the market, but they are. Aganda. Jitan Jitan, Tanji, Nankalan, Jinji, Jishinjis, Jishinji, Machine, Oman, Jishinji is a situation. I don't know what the issue is.
Under the outlines of untainted by birth and destruction caused by the above, is verse 52. It says, just as all worlds arise and disintegrate in space, similarly the senses arise and disintegrate in the unconditioned sphere.
How did you know? The niche the conduct, Nankala thing, Jish, Nijiba, Yashin was it. But Nankadi was to the Kakala chapters, and the Dilva, Nankadi, need to Tanji, and Nankala Tini, the conduct, Jewada, Nijiba, Yana Shin, and Nankala Pigeon, Dinashi, and the message changing your Tomba Tilbora, and you Tomba Tini, no one bona, Akoda, Ombo, come, change you are. That is a Ji, Jiba. 지승을 해서 대지신 지정 안다와 또 원보 칸다 진짜라서 봐 안다 니마시랑 공부하라 때니 공부하라 칸다 지정 지바 지와 지바레데 이나 대신 지정 진지의 최지 넘버 1 이와 전이 말해서 안다대로 와 니마시 니 저기 공부하라 때니 또 원보 칸다 진짜라서 지바다 지바레데 인자 진지 지정 진지의 최지 넘버 1 So
to briefly explain this verse, just as all worlds arise and disintegrate in space, similarly the senses arise and disintegrate in the unconditioned sphere. So we will go to extra notes. So just as the whole world arises and disintegrates in dependence on space, so in other words, it also means space pervades the whole world. And likewise, sense powers arise and disintegrate in dependence on the unconditioned sphere, the emptiness of inherent existence. So even though so just like this, the whole world arises and disintegrates in dependence on space. The sense powers arise and disintegrate in dependence on the unconditioned sphere, the emptiness of inherent existence. So even though sense powers arise and disintegrate in dependence on this unconditioned sphere, the emptiness of inherent existence, however, this unconditioned sphere, or in short, this sphere cannot be changed by the sense powers, cannot be changed by elements, or another translation for this word is constituents. So cannot be changed by elements or constituents and cannot be changed by sources.
어디 지로 다 디오라 다 디오라 가서 뒤에 앉아 쉬는 거 같이 디오라 가서 야 지비치지 마게 봐서 데들와 지비치지 마게 봐서 단 지비치지 마게 봐더라 지단가 매나 지면치 나야 시바메스 대신 되는 지와다 나다 가이 매는 지스와 매는 지스 데 쉬는 거 지와 어디면 쉬는
Next outline is untainted by the phenomena of destruction. Under this outline is verse 53. It says, just as space has never been burned by fire, likewise, the basic element has never been burned by the fires of death, sickness, and old age.
어디 들어오다 간다. 난가 매순보나 지도 난가 매순보나 지 니치 나야 지방에가 대신도 다 세상이 좀 만드는 된 치와다 나와다 가이 매일 시고 오세 다 간다 난가데 다 나마 예 간다 단 치와 나치서는 좀 매일 배샤지고 와 치면 나이 메스 가이 메 지서는 매일 배샤네 치우고 예 간다 난가데 다 매순보나지 다 난가도 건지와면 답이 차대고 와 난가데 간다 메타바 말와 메타바 이나단 좋아도 그러와 단 좋아도 이래서 단 난가데 간다 단 치와서 나와다 가이 서 각긴 좋아 땅도 레스를 와 치와다 가와 각기 난가데 좋아 땅도 말이 대나신로 다 난가데 좋아 땅 못와 나신 다 세계적인 동반이 세계적인 동반이 땅을 된다도 신이 칸대와 힘이 뭐 다르다 힘이 되더라 세계적인 동반이 되네 단 치와
생명신이 동반사에 대한 대화시 빈님보대로 대화시 빈님보디 시시 빈님보대로
빈님보대 난 치와서 나와다 가이 좀 내기 난 좋아 땅도 말이지 난가데 나신와 좋아 땅도 말이 다가 너무 두기 제가지나 세계적인 동반이 되는데 다가나 사지지 공부하는 게 아니라 타도 봐야 타도 앞에 오는 거야 공부 누구요 봐 오는 거야 공부하는 누가 누구요 봐 내가 소도 말했어 뭐가 좋아 땅도 말했어 타도 선지살아 너네 차대로 와
생명신이 동반사에 대한 다화로 하시죠.
이또 말 동반이
바로. So to explain this verse 53, then we go to extra notes. So just as space has never been burned by the three types of fire, likewise the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind has never been burned by the fires of death, illness, and aging. So space has never been burned by the three types of fire. So space itself is permanent, is not impermanent. So if it were impermanent, then it would be changed. It will be changed by conditions such as the three types of fire. However, since space is permanent, so it will never be burned by the three types of fire. Likewise, emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. So, emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, basically it refers to the basic element, the Tathāgata essence, or in other words, the basic element, the Sukkata essence. And this emptiness of inherent existence of the mind is also permanent. And this emptiness of inherent existence of the mind will become the nature of a nature truth body. It will become the nature of nature truth body. So it will never change, and it is permanent. And this emptiness of inherent existence of the mind has never been burned by the fires of death, illness, and aging. Yeah. So in brief, this basic element, the Tathāgata essence, will never be burned by the fires of death, sickness, and old age. So because of this, therefore, it is untainted by the phenomena of destruction.
다 지치 마 배바 내가 가서 송샤오데 다 배리 시고도 다 배들라 간데 되도 산 출로 출는가 눈이 칼라라더니 칸 눈도 최다가 사이 칸 님의 인식 이시로 진도와
And next outline is untainted by the phenomena of birth or production. And under this outline, the sub-outline is example. And under the sub-outlines of example is verse 54. It says, earth depends on water, water depends on air, and air depends on space, while space does not depend on the elements of air, water, and earth.
那这个谈到的修的看到一别的修的话，别的修的社区木是别修的，那社区情况的话，那区域情况的嘛，区域情况的弄情况的意思，弄的情况的都难看了，你没事，难看了你没事，但你们去难看的话，那弄的觉得在社看了，那社看了你不嘛的意思，那刚才我说你定桥子比较修的的，你定桥子吧，然后我就弄修的，我说咱今天也桥子，咱们弄的情况。 是吧？
他们弄已经过，
弄经过差不多，
啥已经过。
当不恰当，有我来就谁经过的话就去经过了，定个也是，去经过的那个也是，去经过，去经过的那个，弄经过了那个也是，我说，当不弄经过，这第一看了我说，觉得啥差不多吧？我谁经过的去经过了那个也是，是吧？当不你今天差不多我说弄经过，但你得恰死了，我会写是吧？但你这个都当不弄经过。 那弄个经过点讲，那去经过点讲，啥经过，对不对吧？但是恰次人把这段听到盲目学是吧？那等到你看别人对吧？我的恰法的是，弄个经过的，但难看了明白的也是，难看了明白的是，我说难看的明白的，但你们是难看的弄的，缺大的，啥经过看了明白也是了，是吧？难看的看了明白也是。
So, to explain these extra notes. So the earth mandala abides in the water mandala. I think this one. Okay. The earth mandala abides on the water mandala abides on the wind mandala, and the wind mandala abides on space. Unconditioned space does not abide on other substantial entities, the wind, the water, and earth elements. So it talks about the formations of the world. That first is the space and the wind element. So because here it says earth mandala abides on the water mandala, right? And this water mandala abides on the wind mandala, and the wind mandala abides on space. So first is wind mandala, then followed by water mandala, then followed by earth mandala. So, and this wind mandala abides on space. And in other words, this unconditioned space does not abide on wind, water, and earth element.
那地方是别修啊，那就那我说南方修的我说，那个看了那个嘛是个味道，南方的缺的弄的缺的晒经过晒看了说白了，你嘛嘛的，就那南方的我常往嘛吃的也是味道，吃的也是，但对了那边呢，一点不能吃的味道，一点不能，是吧？南方的可能就往多有嘛，是吧？你点的，那啥子吃了什么点啥子吃了什么就往多有吧，往多有吧？ 南卡的这种吃的呢，南卡小的话是没办法，别讲的小娃卡里吃的呢，但小娃也有蛮喜欢，我说康巴鸡巴的，马路巴的也鸡巴的，我说公巴今年罗安的，刚刚南卡的点的是，南卡的没办法，我说那个卡里的钱没有钱，南卡的长度的吃的也是，南卡的啥的吃的路，看了那边的时候，那边的时候。
So here it says unconditioned space does not abide on other elements, the wind, water, and earth elements. So so it means that space pervades all. It means space pervades all the element, but but space does not abide on these elements. So because if space were to abide on this element, then space and this element would become the basis and the support and the supported. So if space were to abide on this element, then this element would become the basis, or become basis, and the space would become the supported. So, those elements are support, and then the space become the supported. So if this were the case, then when the basis, those elements change, then the space, which is the supported, would also have changed. So therefore, this also proves that space does not abide on these elements. So there is no relationship of support and the supported, because space is permanent. It doesn't depend on these elements. Does not abide on this element, or it doesn't depend on this element. If were to depend on this element, then space would become impermanent, because when the support changed, or when the support changes, then the space would go through changes as well. So space pervades all of them, but space does not depend on these elements. So depending on the space element, then we are able to engage in activities such as going to work, such as eating, such as walking, such as building house, and etc. All these depends on the space element. So in other words, space pervades all of them, but it does not depend on this element. And you all have studied science before, so and this is similar, or this is the explanations of these is similar to the science explanations as well. If there is no space, then all will gel together. So all will become only yeah, so all will become like one solid, undifferentiated thing, because space element allows this to be differentiated. And if space element doesn't exist, then all will gel together, or it will become one solid thing that it becomes an undifferentiated solid thing. So then next outline is the phenomena illustrated by the example or the meaning. So this is verse 55 and verse 56. It says, similarly, the aggregates, constituents, and sense powers are based on karma and afflictions. Karma and afflictions are always based on incorrect mental attention. So incorrect mental attention, another term that we have learned before is incorrect mental engagement. So incorrect mental attention depends on the purity of the mind, while the nature of the mind does not abide in all those phenomena. Temba Yugi Kamtru.
유지 칸도와 다 땡원부 칸도와
Temba Kamtru.
땡원부 땡바 나시와
Temba Yugi Kamtru. Tendang Temba Tang.
요
Yu.
유지 칸 유지 칸도와 이바 유지 칸도
Temba Yugi Kamtru.
땡바 유지 칸도 땡나시 땡노바시 칸도 땡원부와 땡원부시 칸도
Tenbombo Kamtru. Inditang Namshi Kamtru.
미바 유지 칸도 미 야도 미바 유지 칸도 미바 유지 칸도 땡원비 칸도 땡바 나시 칸도 요게와 봉봉와 다 진시 중이로와 다 진시 중이 나오도 진시 시 진시 중이로 말에 나지 올라래요 다 뜻을 간다와 다 사지지 디비트서 공부다 강 스로우와 라 사지지 디비로와 공부다 강미나서 받을 그런 이제 내가 내용 받다가 내가 예스 내가 내용 받다가 내히스 다 내가 내용 받다가 내에서 왔다 내가 내용 제거도 중앙에서 내가 데려와 내가 내용 받다가 내히 다 내가 내용과 차서도 저도 간다 다 취미지 내용과 심지 대바지 취미지 놈들 취미이라 싶었다 보면 취미이지다 다 취미이지라 간다 그 준비지 되게 쉬워 이제 차서 내가 내용을 가르치고 취미지 놈들 지고요 취미지 놈들 지고요 다 취미이지 근데 간다 생기내로 자기 남바다가 니들이 예스 담보도 지고 원래 지지사 이만 제일 좋아.
So to explain these two verses, so it says similarly the aggregates, constituents, and sense powers are based on karma and afflictions, right? And then we go to extra notes. So similarly, the contaminated aggregates, elements or constituents, and sense powers such as the I abide in their causes, karma and afflictions. So contaminated aggregates. Then we talked about there are 5 aggregates, and then there are 18 elements. So 18 elements, if divided, then there are 3 sets of 6 elements. So the first set is 6 elements of the base, 6 elements of the basis, the sense powers, and 6 elements of the objects of observation, the object, and 6 elements of the supported, the 6 sense consciousnesses. So there are 18 elements or 18 constituents. So 6 bases or 6 supports, the sense power, 6 objects of observation, the object, and 6 supported, the sense consciousnesses. So, and sense powers, so sense, aggregates, elements, and sources. So there are 12 sources. There are 6 internal sources and 6 external sources. And sense powers, then such as the I, and abides in their causes, karma and afflictions. So abide in their causes also means that they arise in dependence on karma and afflictions. In other words, they arise by the power or by the force of karma and afflictions. And karma and afflictions such as attachment always abide in improper mental engagement or improper mental attention that apprehend sentient beings as truly existent. And improper mental engagement abides in natural purity, which is the modes of abiding of the mind. The modes of abiding of the mind, and emptiness, which is the nature of the mind, does not abide in anything in the manner of being something factually other. So in other words, emptiness, which is the nature of the mind, does not abide in improper mental engagement.
그 진이 이질러서 다 한다. 정말 로보아리스. 정말 로보아 손자 정말 로보아데 로부지마도 때리야 로야 기요만 와. 정말 로보아데 가서 아 단조야 지 매바 써야 지와. 매바 써야 지래. 신지랑기데 대라 내바이나. 다시 정말 대라 내바이나. 그 신지랑기데 상지 살아만도에 제이고. 어디 이거와. 어디라 이거 말 정말 로보아리스. 이게 제가 하나 아 수비 이질러서 봐. 여ሻ 님으로서 봐. 대달라 니고 말이스. 많이 지저가 다 정말 로보아리스. 로보아. 다 공부 가면서 봐. 대리 중앙에 세 대라. 아니 동반이 대리 중앙에 대리 내 말이스. 뭐라 그게.
기말 로보 아니 디슴기 랑싱 레이종마로.
그러봐. 로보아리스. 거기서 참아.
요몽세데 강 렌조 참마데 하싱기 랑싱 레이종마로. 대야 니기오리스 텔리 중기오리스.
사실 랑이 좀 동반아. 동반이스 가더라. 내가 때 말해 마도.
니기오리 중기오리.
그게 스미 이지라서 로보아 차데스. 로보아 차데스. 와. 다 로보아 순자 다 대사 미고 많이 지는 거 로보아 차스.
Yep. So here it says the contaminated aggregates elements and sense powers. It depends on karma and afflictions, and these karma and afflictions abide in improper mental engagement, and this improper mental engagement abides in the nature of the mind, which is the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. And in other words, these aggregates, elements, sense power, karma, afflictions, improper mental engagement abides in the nature of the mind, which is the emptiness of inherent existence. So in other words, these aggregates, elements, sense powers, karma, afflictions, improper mental engagement arise from this nature of the mind. They arise from the nature of the mind. And these aggregates, elements, sense powers, karma, afflictions, improper mental engagement. So these are adventitious defilements. So and here you say is the nature of the mind does not, emptiness, which is the nature of the mind, doesn't abide in anything, right? So it doesn't abide in improper mental engagement, because if it were to abide in improper mental engagement, since improper mental engagement, karma, and afflictions are adventitious defilements, and they are to be removed, then they are to be purified. And if they were purified, then it would follow that the nature of the mind doesn't go to the state of enlightenment. It doesn't become the nature of the nature truth body.
Okay, 다 간다 단다데 가서 배 방이라고 되는데 막 자고 대화를 해. 그래서 단다 가서 수고 사진 이화리 뭐 전화 안 가서 내가 달래다 니모 뭐 장자로 와. 내가 뭐 내가 좋아해. 내가 니모한테 좋아해. 내가 니모한테 가리. 먼저 당가서 화를 막 제단적인 거 이제 내고 와. 아무 말이 버대왕 간다. 스미지 남도 내고 그래. 스미지 남도 대왕에 다 차선 니모라서 니모스 제고 와. 니모 저 대왕이 레상 와.
강보에 대한 레뉴로 된 레뉴에 대해서 수미 이제로 수미 이제
아무데로 와서 또 주당 와서
사지기 공부
와 대왕의 스미지 남도 제고와 남도 되면서 차선 내무도 하고 와 남도 대왕이 딱 차선 내무도 제고 세고 와
수미 이제 이왕기 에 대한 차소
나 내무 대왕 레사 나 레대왕이 또 과라 지와리 레세 또 과라 지와리 나가서 공부돼 사 레니지 간다 레다 뉴버 속은 되게 참 좋아
사지기 공부
어디 대다데
So here it talks about aggregates, elements, sense power. It talks about karma and afflictions. It talks about improper mental engagement. And these improper mental engagement, to me 이제 나한테 말이 발레.
정말 너무 스미지 되게 너무 대화가 나도 대화가 너무 못 쳤다.
이네들 to me 이제 나한테 말이 봐. 라떼 얘기해 말해.
그럼 말이 다 시작도 많이 봐라.
시작도 말어. That's all. And improper mental engagement is rooted in ignorance. So here it talks about the order of taking rebirth in samsara. So the root is samsara, and then from the root of samsara, then improper mental engagement, and then from improper mental engagement, then affliction such as attachment arises, and due to the arising of attachment, then one accumulates karma, and due to the accumulations of karma, then one obtain these contaminated aggregates, or contaminated aggregates arises from this karma. Aggregates, this contaminated appropriated aggregates then arises from this karma that one has accumulated due to the power of afflictions that arise from the improper mental engagement, this which is rooted in ignorance. This is sure. This is considering this section is during the flow state. Yeah. You cannot mean that suchness is going to be transformed into suchness. Yeah. So he says, therefore, this section means that even during the impure state, emptiness, even during the impure state, emptiness by nature, in other words, is emptiness of inherent existence. It cannot be altered or affected by karma and afflictions. It doesn't mean that suchness with defilement cannot be transformed into suchness without defilement by the power of the antidotes. So here it talks about the nature of the mind, which is emptiness of inherent existence. It cannot be altered or cannot be changed by karma and afflictions. However, it doesn't mean that the suchness with defilements, which is on the occasions of impure states. So the suchness of defilements cannot be transformed or cannot be changed into the suchness without defilement by the power of antidotes. So you may say that the suchness with defilements can be transformed into suchness without defilement by the power of antidotes, right? So it can be changed, right? The nature of the mind. So here, when we say that the suchness with defilements transform into suchness without defilements. Here it talks about the power of antidotes. Then the defilements are purified by the power of antidotes. So, however, it doesn't mean that even though even though the suchness with defilements can be transformed into suchness without defilement, but it doesn't establish, it doesn't prove that, or it doesn't have become a reason to say that the nature of the mind, which is emptiness of inherent existence, can be altered by karma and afflictions. So because karma and afflictions, such as attachment, they are adventitious. They are defilements and they are adventitious. So they are adventitious defilements. And these adventitious defilements are not intrinsic to the nature of the mind. So in other words, the nature of the mind, which is emptiness of inherent existence, cannot be changed by this karma and afflictions, even though the suchness with defilement can be transformed into suchness without defilement by the power of antidotes. So the meaning of the suchness with defilements transforming into suchness without defilements, it means that the defilements are purified by the power of antidotes. It doesn't mean that these defilements, adventitious defilements, are intrinsic to the nature of the mind. Next outline is correspondence of the example with the phenomena. Yeah, so correspondence of the example with the phenomena. So in other words, is correlations of the analogy with the meaning. And under this outline, there are two verses, verse 57 and 58. And it says, the aggregate sensory sources. So sensory sources in other words is sources. And constituents, in other words, elements, are to be known as like the earth, karma and afflictions of sentient beings, or to be known as like the water element. Incorrect mental attention is considered similar to the air element or wind element. The mind's nature, just like the space element, has no foundation and does not rest in incorrect mental attention. So first talk about verse 57. Then we go to extra notes. The subject, the contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements should be understood as being like the earth mandala, because they are the results of their causes, karma and afflictions. So it means that contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements are the results of their causes, which is karma and afflictions. 灵犀你的电气不到了，赛经过的了，你的灵犀的这个全不到，你的灵源那样的毛把给那边给电，在的机器碰破机器电所，给电气给我的。
我知道，我把那边几个来的你们电气的也是吧？那边就是来的你们电气的吧？碰破电看到那边就这不差不多啊。这家的电的，这来的你们或者就是电有多没差不多对。那边就这问题对。
灵源电毛把那边的电气给我。
我通过知道，那边几个来的你们电气的也是来的是电。
灵源给电。
来的你们对。
那面那啲灵源嘅電差嘅，
那面幾樣？
那面
那面幾？那面幾？那面幾個話？啲幾個？你那個電池嘅是？
其實靈源那啲電池嘅咯。
你那個電池嘅是？
靈源嘅電池嘅喎，你啲這部那面電所以那啲電巴咯。
你那面是那面這個，不是那面這個，或者你那個那面這個是公布了話。公布結果。你那個公布結果話。你點你公布的？你那個電池嘅是？
其實靈犀入電所以那啲那面嘅這部能性嘅，你啲賽經過那啲靈源嘅能性咗，咗。
賽經過的話，你睇下什麼電池的話？賽經過的，日曬的，潮濕的。
賽經過電是入電所的電巴的。
電巴的話，這電能是
靈源那樣電是。
我公布的抗制的電池的也是。
那面嘅這部碰碰抗電，所以你電巴差嘅咯。So it's just like the Earth mandala. So Earth mandala is the support for four continents, Mount Meru, cave rocks, and etc. So Earth mandala is the support for all these Earth element. It's a support for four. It's a four. That's not what I say. 灵犀在的，然后得看他自己听我介绍。是，是，等下你自己老话，你要等到自己听我介绍。Yeah, anyway, yeah. Yeah, it's you need to link to the genuine. Anyway, so yeah, when we talk about this Earth mandala is a support, and then it acts as a support for Mount Meru, for example. So Mount Meru is the supporter, and then similar to this, then they are the results of their causes, karma and afflictions. So causes, karma and afflictions are the support, and they act as the support for the ripening results. And what are the ripening results? Contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements. And these contaminated, appropriated aggregates, sources, and elements, and they are the supported. So karma and afflictions are support, and then aggregates, sources, and elements, they are the supported. So just like the Earth mandala is the support, and those Mount Meru, whatever depends on this Earth mandala, are the supported.
你把这个他等到这个是理性嘛，我两家之间对吧？那理性起来的你我就觉得话，那理性起来的你我只看到，他去看到的，是吧？家庭去看到的也是，那啥就分别的关系，那让就村民一起就也是对吧？村民一起就，那看到那来的人他就不去在的话，来的人我看到去看到，对吧？是不的，这啥就分别的关系的也是，是吧？啥就分别的关系的，那让就。 村民一起这个的是吧？村民一起这个电网的别的你们的解释，咱们知道是吧？你这个也是这些。
And then he says the subject, karma and afflictions of embodied beings should be understood as being like the water element because they act as support for the contaminated aggregates and they are the result of their cause in proper mental engagement. So these karma and afflictions, then they are like the water element because they act as the support for the contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements. And they are the result of their cause. And these they refer to karma and afflictions. They are the result of their cause, which is improper mental engagement.
다 지금 많이 빌려서 들어와. 다 지금 많이 빌려서 간다. 다 누구 간다 와리스. 왜 간다? 저한테 내용도 있듯이. 왜 라미 좀 봐라. 내용이스. 와. 여기 누구 간다 와데 저한테 내용도 있듯이. 지금 많이 빌려서 다시 그 증거서라 돼. 내용도 있듯이. 그 세상이 좀 봐. 내용이스. 어디래죠?
The subject, improper mental engagement, should be viewed as being like the wind element because it acts as support for its result, afflictions, and it abides in the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. So just now we also mentioned that karma and afflictions, they depend on or they abide in improper mental engagement.
다 뒤에 가서 세상이 좀 봐. 다 간지 공마 야들이 또 원마 시리즈 원레벨 와. 다 세상이 좀 봐대. 근데 나기 칸도 내그레스. 그 가다 심이지 되지 봐서 심이지 되지 그래. 그 장이 좀 시신 말이스. 다 세상이 좀 봐대 간다. 그래서 여기 심이지 되지 심이 좀 세상이 좀 봐대 내스 기와. 여러 다 심이지 되지 그래. 심이지 가다 세상이 좀 봐대 여러 예, 장이 좀 시신 말이스. 다 세상이 좀 봐대 장이 좀 시신 말이스. 좀 말이스. 와, 나 rangi ne bayo ma, rangi chupa ne bayo ma, yes, wa, rangi chupa ne bayo ma, yes.
And the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind abides just like the space element because it acts as a support for improper mental engagement. It lacks, so it refers to this emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. So it lacks a basis that is inherent existence and it doesn't abide inherently. So just now we also mentioned that these contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements, they abide in karma and afflictions, and karma and afflictions abide in improper mental engagement, and improper mental engagement abide in the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. And this emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, it abides just like the space element. It acts as a support for the improper mental engagement, but itself lacks a basis. So it doesn't have a basis that is inherent existence, and it doesn't. So this emptiness of inherent existence of the mind doesn't abide inherently as well.
다 지미지 치바 담보가도 지미지 치바로 다 지미지 치바 다저 치바 시리마 다 dimmo 원래 다 다시 보도 치마 취사와 다들이 아마 치바 치고 치리 거리로 다 담보 치바대로 지미지 치바대 다 지금 이제 세계에서 이런이 지금 많이 이제지 내가 뭐라도 치스 다들 쉬는 지는 나 뒤쉬스
Go back to verse 15. So here it talks about the characteristics of incorrect mental attention. So just now we have already talked about karma, these aggregates, sources, elements. Then we talk about karma and afflictions, and we talk about improper mental engagement. Then we talk about the emptiness of inherent resistance of the mind. So here it talks about the characteristics or the attributes of incorrect mental attention. It talks about the functions of it. So in verse 59, it says, incorrect mental attention depends on the nature of the mind. Incorrect mental attention is the door for the emerging of karma and afflictions.
다 지금 많이 위지기다 다 제발 시오로와 다 지금 많이 비일라 시반에 다 때문에 봐 마리스코 때문에 봐 말이 때 가르쳐 세지랑이 동반이라 네 말이스 다 이지나 들어서와 때문에 봐 세지랑이 동반이라 네 말이스 다 지금 많이 위니야 시레다 가르쳐서나 들어와 시레 가르쳐서나 다 시레데 그런데 내단 영지 뭐가 내단 영국가 제다 시레다 된 말이스 된다 들어와 지금 이제 실내 가려서 그 실내대 내가 안 되고 내가 너무 제이다 안다 보고 이래서 내가 너무 지바와 내가 너무 제이다 실내들 간다 도도시나 내가 너무 제요 그래서 제요 실내에서 뭐 제바 실내도요 그래서 와딱 그러고 저희 뭐 된다도 님과 때에 가서 때에 실내니 잡다더라 때에 가서 때에 가라 生了就这个动把的东西，马上就这个动把的东西。而现在的考虑是呢，现在让人这不，那来的人不是吧？让人这不来的人不就现在这个定义是，我这来说。
So basically, this verse, it's verse 59. So it talks about the support or the base of incorrect mental intention, and it talks about the functions of incorrect mental intention. So then we go to extra notes. So here it says, improper mental engagement is not without support. So it means that it has support, and because it abides in the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, which is the nature of the mind. So improper mental engagement, it has support. It has its support. And what is its support? Which is the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. And improper mental engagement has function. So it talks about it has support, and then secondly it talks about it has function. And what is its function? So because it opens the opportunity for the arising of its results, karma and afflictions. So in short, the functions of improper mental engagement is to produce its result, which is karma and afflictions, or it opens the opportunity for these karma and afflictions to arise. So next is the characteristics of karma and afflictions. And under this outline is verse 60. It says, from karma and afflictions, which are like water, aggregates, sensory sources, and constituents derive. Just as the water element springs up and vanishes, they too arise and disintegrate. So to explain the functions of karma and afflictions, go to extra note. It says the water-like karma and afflictions have functions because they cause the arising of their results, contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements. So the functions of karma and afflictions is to produce or to generate contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements. So this is the functions of karma and afflictions. And he continues, and he says, the contaminated aggregates arise and disintegrate because their causes, karma and afflictions, arise and disintegrate. So aggregates arise and disintegrate because their causes, karma and afflictions, arise and disintegrate as well. So in this verse, it talks about the functions of karma and afflictions, and the second part of this verse, it talks about aggregates and sources, elements, and etc. They are subject to productions and disintegration. They are subjected to productions and disintegration because their causes, karma and afflictions, are subjected to productions and disintegration as well. So therefore, their results, the results of karma and afflictions, which is aggregates, they arise and disintegrate as well.
간다디 디치에서 내가 뭐 찍다 보다 간다 내내다 해지지 랑 남이지 공부해라 칸티니스라 내내다 해지지 제거해서 요 내내다 해지지 지니 또 공부하다 진실은 칸티스 제거해서 뭐라 그리고 요 내내다 해지지 지니 와
레뉴니가로 레뉴니가 네 예랭기 교라 해지지
내내다 해지지 지니 이런 공부 칸티니스 그래서 대시 뭐라
So he also talks about karma and afflictions. They act as substantial cause and cooperative conditions for the arising of the contaminated aggregates, elements and sources. And so in our text, it says, from karma and afflictions in the form of substantial cause and contributory cause. So contributory cause, in other words, is a cooperative condition, and which are likened to the water mandala, will come the ripened aggregates, sensory sources, and constituents. As the water mandala is destroyed and formed, so the ripened aggregates and etc. are destroyed and formed by the force of karma and afflictions. So here he talks about karma and afflictions. They act as substantial cause and cooperative conditions, and then which are like the water mandala, and then from which the ripened aggregates, contaminated aggregates, sources, and elements arise or are produced. Then as the water mandala is destroyed and formed, then so the ripened aggregates and etc. are destroyed and formed by the force of karma afflictions. Yeah. So the karma and afflictions are likened to water mandala, right? So as the water mandala of karma and afflictions is destroyed and formed, then so the ripened aggregates, sources, elements are formed and destroyed as well. Then next we talks about the characteristics of their base or of their support. Is verse 61. He says, just like the elements of space, so too the nature of the mind lacks causes and conditions and lacks the collection of causes and conditions. It therefore has no arising, disintegration, and abiding.
吧？能看的就多。这要么但能看的，实际上就东北的，但能看能是也是，能看的能是也是，但能看的就接触吧，没把能些，那实际上就东北的了，完的就在接触吧，跟要嘛的也是，要么的，然后就进来的介绍就的，他们啊，然后就进来的进，完了你他的介绍对，然后你。他们去挖到你，他的机械的老的，那刚才进来的呢，就挖进来市场，这个社会的话，就进来就去操作的呢，那进来说，啊，你会到不得的话，对，你会到不新疆那边，你会教的，你会的，那他们就进来的呢，进，那进来你得就是你记得我，得就是记得我，但人家的等于给要嘛是吧？人家的他们介绍的，也就是你，也就是他们提的啥给要嘛，那实际上就东北的台湾嘛也是。实际上是东北那个通过计划的，他人计划的，意识让已经念说早晚没有嘛，也是，是吧？你那个体力群体也是有可能吧。
So here he talks about the characteristics of their base. Then to explain this, then we go to extra notes. Then he says, the subject, the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, abides like space, because it is a sphere lacking its substantial cause and the collections of cause and condition. It doesn't inherently arise in the beginning, disintegrate disintegrate in the end, and abide in the middle. So just like this emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, which is the nature of the mind, it abides like space. So space is permanent. So space is permanent. Since space is permanent, therefore it doesn't have the substantial cause. It doesn't have the cooperative conditions. If space were to have its substantial cause and cooperative conditions, then space would have go through changes. Space would go through changes. So therefore, since space is permanent, therefore it lacks substantial cause and it lacks collections of cause and conditions. So this nature of the mind, emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, is like the space. The emptiness of inherent existence, which is the nature of the mind, is permanent as well. So since it is permanent, it lacks substantial cause and it lacks collections of cause and conditions as well. Yeah. So then, So previously we also talk about, for example, a thing, for example, sprout. So a sprout go through changes, right? So in dependence on cause and conditions, it arises or is produced, and then in dependence on cause and conditions, they disintegrate. So, however, a permanent space or unconditioned space, it doesn't arise in the beginning in dependence on cause and conditions. It doesn't abide in the middle, and it doesn't disintegrate in the end as well. And similarly, the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, which is permanent as well, it doesn't arise in the beginning, abide in the middle, disintegrate in the end, in dependence on cause and condition.
나도 결정이 나가서 연주들에도 내가 되는 거와 연주야. 이미 지게도 있고, 연주들에도 생기죠. 이거서 봐. 나 내내 지게도 먼저 되는 거와. 얘가 너무 시도 먼저. 다 생기죠. 이거서 강의도 얘는 난가 신경 내게 양단도 내진 자서 요거 지니 얘네 몸문줄 얘가 너무 최소지 이제 너무만 눈이 어디에도
그래서 원쪽이 배치하는 데 주주自己记着 自己记着 念不明白 나서 Yep. So then we go to the text. Then under the outlines of summary, and under this outline, the sub-outline is the divisions of this outline is unchanged by karma and affliction. And under this outline is verse 62. It says, the mind's nature of clear light is unchanging, just like space. Those adventitious stains, such as desire, which derive from not wrong concepts, do not afflict the emptiness of the mind.
那刚才对对的多， 다 레니 지신도 문도와 세디렌도와 다 세랑이지 외서와 강인바디 로 세랑이 뒤에서 강인바디 단지와 메디 다 난가진도 문도와 님버 두싱 다다지 고노 몸부 두사레스 라고로 두스마레스 다 세디랑 위에서 강인바디 가다 유아요 마레스 다 된다 도도 들리 셰우데 마서 세디랑 이라 드마 슈고 마레 드마도 로고 아레스 된다 딜리 도도와 세디랑 위에서 강인바디 된지와요 마레스 난가진도 문도와 님버 두싱 자레스 다 세디랑 위에서 와데 지 먹게 바래서 지 먹게 바래 양다만 많이 운동을 저희 딴 데서 로비지 재미기 네 안다 님고 보면 좀 이래서 로비지 좀 맞다 슈바요 마스로 거라다 내가 가다 이게 뭐 이래 슈바요 마스로 간다와 이랑 이래 슈네 간다 인지 왔다 또 말했어 간다 이랑 이래 슈네 왔다 또 말했어 이랑 이래 슈바요 마스 이랑 이래 슈스는 인지 왔다 또 와 신이랑 위해서 여샤라서 정말 로고 아저서 저시들 슈바이나 당연히서 저시들 왔다 또 이요 말했다 간다 레니지 현는 좋았다 또 말했어 다디로와
So here we are under the outlines of unchanged by karma and afflictions, and it talks about the mind's nature of clear light is unchanging. So then we go to verse 62. So it says the luminous nature of the mind doesn't change because it has already been established that it abides without changing, just like space. So just now we have already mentioned, we have stated the reason that why the nature of the mind or the luminous nature of the mind is unchanging. So we have already stated the reason why the luminous nature of the mind it doesn't change. So just like the space, it doesn't change as well. So in other words, when we say the luminous nature of the mind doesn't change, this also indicates that those defilements, those adventitious defilements are not intrinsic to the nature of the mind. So when we say the luminous nature of the mind doesn't change, so it also indicates that those adventitious defilements are not intrinsic to the nature of the mind. So, and this also proves that those defilements are adventitious. So if those adventitious defilements were intrinsic to the nature of the mind, then the nature of the mind would go through changes. The nature of adventitious defilements are not intrinsic to the nature of the mind. Therefore, the nature of the mind doesn't change. And the luminous nature of the mind, and then then he says the luminous nature of the mind is untainted by production because it is a sphere that doesn't change into affliction by adventitious defilements, such as attachment arising from incorrect discursive thoughts. So, and this sphere also refers to the nature of the mind as well. And this sphere or this nature of the mind or the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, it doesn't change. They are untainted by karma and afflictions.
다 간다 되게 된다 돼야 되는 거죠. 다 신지지라 상지지 리요레 그래서 다 된다 또 돼야 되는
신지지라.
네, 신지지라 상지지 리요레 생각서 리치지 신지 요마 당어도 단결식 리치지 신지 멜로버와 리치지 신지 요마 레스 간다 다 신상바도 좀 리치지 신지 요서 길라고와 다 간다 신지지라 상지지 리요레 상지지 리요와 선다 다 신지 단지 상지루레 네 상지지 리들라 간다 요와 선사 네 상지지 콤파니아 로야게 그치 간다 이거 지열에서 간다 생지기 생때로와 상지 사람 그게 이거 지열에서 근데 니버데 가서 니버데 가서 니샤오다 도도다 저기 내리시와 정말집이 되긴 있어가지고 무슨 제지를 있으니 내가 니래고도와
정말집이 되시니다
정말집이 되긴 있다 대신이 뭐다 다 제지를 있으니와 뭐 제지를 있어 다 제지를 있어서 가서 세능지 소지 뒤하게 집이 간다 이렇게 되시고와 세나지 소리 디비리 건치셔서 그래서 이게 죽어야 돼. 리치가 좋다. 수도 비가 여러 가서 와. 원소가 여러 돼. 원래대. 세나지 소리 디비 탑에 야 죽라지 요야 그 리주지. 사지 여러 간다 와. 근데랑 이제 당와서 이시 좀 사디게 시고로 와. 어다 된디 니 당와서 메이치야요 말에 영웅 속에 가긴 좋았다야 말에 내가 써야 말에 진짜 근데 누야 랑지도 왜 사와래? 진짜 누야 이러네.
rgyud simjin yo marwa de thank you lo thank you lo ini the simjin ba na de yo is de aso rgyud ki simjin lo rgyud ki simjin Yeah, so here we talks about the luminous nature of the mind doesn't change untainted by karma and afflictions. So the summary of the meaning of these verses are sentient beings possess the Buddha nature or Buddha lineage in their continuum. So this is the summarized meaning of these verses. So it means sentient beings possess or sentient beings have the Buddha lineage in their continua. So in other words, sentient beings have the ability to achieve the state of enlightenment. And according to Prasangika, then they assert that there is no sentient beings whose lineage is severed. So according to Prasangika, there is no sentient beings, there is not any sentient being whose lineage is severed. So it means that all sentient beings have the Buddha lineage to achieve the state of enlightenment, have the Buddha lineage, then in other words, all sentient beings have the ability to achieve the state of enlightenment. So even though Chittamatra assert that they are sentient beings whose lineage are severed, and however, according to Prasangika assertions, there is not any sentient beings whose lineage is severed. So when we say that we have all sentient beings have the Buddha lineage and all sentient beings have the ability to achieve the state of enlightenment, in brief, this lineage is divided into two, the naturally abiding lineage and developmental lineage. So naturally abiding lineage refers to the basic element, the Tathāgata essence or the Sukata essence, and the developmental lineage refers to the lineage that is included within the collections of merit through which one obtained the outcome, which is the form body. So through the developmental lineage, one achieved the outcome, which is the form body. And then these two types of lineage, naturally abiding lineage and developmental lineage, are the divisions of this Buddha lineage. So, and by having this Buddha lineage, then we are able to achieve the state of enlightenment. And this lineage, Buddha lineage, which is the luminous nature of the mind, cannot be burned by fire. It cannot be changed. It cannot be removed or eliminated. That's all. And next outline is unchanged by birth and destruction. And under this outline is verse 63. It says, neither do karma and afflictions likened to water and so on produce the basic element, nor will it be burned by the intolerable fires of death, sickness, and old age.
중고단 자와 소지 정말 집이 되긴 간다 반주와 당도 말해서 와 이 누구도 말해 지치지 그거요 말해서 와 이 텔레 반주와 텔레 그거요 말해 이랑 실라 주와기 요 말해서 이랑 실라 주는 봐 주와 당야 기요 말해서 주와 당도 말해서
So in this text, it says the coming together of karma and affliction, which is likened to the water mandala, will not produce this suchness with defilement because it remains unaffected by the phenomenon of birth. So it means that these karma and afflictions will not produce this suchness with defilement. In other words, they do not produce this suchness with defilement. They are unable to produce this suchness with defilement because it remains unaffected by the phenomenon of birth. It means that these karma and afflictions are not intrinsic to the nature, are not intrinsic to the suchness with defilement, the nature of the mind. So are not intrinsic to this suchness of karma and afflictions are not intrinsic to the suchness with defilements. So therefore, they are unable. These karma and afflictions are unable to produce, are unable to change this suchness with defilement. The 가리당 기와당타.
정말 되기니 가다 지취지 개요 말 거서 내가 내가 년고 저 참아 손이로와 내가 년고 취지고 단다와 저 손에 정말 되기니 봐 이번 루야기 지와게 제도야 말했어 뭐 정말 되기니 지와 지취 그거 말에 지와서 자살해서 개와 지와서 재활했어 나 지와서 재활서다 나 지와 루야게 요 말했어 지와 루야게 소야요 말했어 와 년버서 정말 되기니 지와서 재살 지와서 제이지서 가서 다비랑 지리스 다비랑 있으다 지와서 재활했어 지와서 자 지바서 자와 와 인가바서 자와 이리스
고다 타만
지와서 자와 지바서 자와 인가바 자와
기와 지바다 가
제가 성화도 자와했어 지와가 본지고 그가서 자와했어 이 자와선자 다 내가 년버 취 증권자와 그 같이 소나 그 한다 지원 루야게 요 말했어 루야게 요 말했어
So these coming together of karma and afflictions. So in other words, it's the collections of karma and afflictions, which is likened to the water mandala. So they are unable to produce this suchness with defilements. So when we talk about, so it means that karma and afflictions, through acting as cause and conditions, are unable to karma and afflictions are unable to be the cause and conditions for the productions of this suchness with defilements. So in other words, karma and afflictions, they cannot produce this suchness with defilements through acting as cause and conditions for the production, for this production. And so why do we say that these karma and collections of karma and afflictions are unable to produce this suchness with defilements? Is because this suchness with defilements is free of production, is free of production, free of productions or free of birth. So free of birth because it is permanent in nature. So when we say this suchness with defilements is free of birth or free of productions, and is free of disintegration, and is free of cessation as well. So why do we say that this suchness with defilement is free of birth, free from birth, free from disintegration, and free from cessation? Because this suchness with defilement is permanent in nature.
취 초하다 나와서 가이 미드네 잡고와 아 초이동아 앞에 가이 나이 동에 잡고기 집이 무지비 집밖에요 말 집안줘요 말 지금 말했어 지금 말 가서 집이 좀 먹게 말했어 집이 좀 먹게 좋아 인지바다 타와르스라 사르와 인지비치지 말고 인지바다 타와르스라 사르와 인지바다 타와르 인지비치지 개요 말레스 난 추와다 나와다 가이도 잡고 칸디지 요가 이네와 그 휴다고 가리나 그때 간다 시바게 제도 말레스 여버서도 말레스 인지비치지 개요 말레 인지바다 타사레스.
So here he talks about it remains unaffected by the phenomenon of birth. It means that this suchness with defilement is not subjected to the phenomenon of birth, or is not subjected to production, and it will not be burned by the fires of death, illness, and old age, which are unceasing in their creations of great suffering, because it remains unaffected by the phenomenon of destructions. So, and this suchness with defilements will not be burned by this intolerable fire of death, illness, and old age, because it is permanent in nature. Since it is permanent in nature, it is free from the phenomenon of destruction. This is get na gishima. Na chi thang na. Chi thang na ina di get thang tuyên tuyên nga. Na so ki picha get thang tuyên tuyên nga nyam tu yore. Get thang tuyên tuyên nga. Di nyam tu yoro. Ini di lo are ma.
또 되다. 다 뭐라 최초 공부스 좀 지시. 이제 가와스 좀 먼저. 이래도 이리서 매다 최초대로 다 공부스 공부스 지시 가와스 좀 먼저. 단다 되래다요. 최단나라 가와지 먼저 되래도. 다들마 된다. 나와 타마비 매스 최다 나와도 가이 매스 중에도 대단도 힘마샤서 이도와.
Next we go to verse 64. Verse 64 is under the outlines of unchanged by old age, etc., destroyer of the aggregates, and likened to fire. So verse 64 says, the fire at the end of time, the fire of hell, and ordinary fire should be understood in this order as being similar to the three fires of death, sickness, and old age.
다들이 간다 치와다 나와다 가이 메소 단소나서 되게 모두 메소를 대샤서와 치와다 가와다 나이 가이 메소 뭐 리바기도 단니 진주대대와 단니 진주대 담보 치와서와 니 진주대 가다 세바 셰바다 냐이 와 냐이 리세바 셰바다 히세바 시 진지기 메다 냐이 메다 타마지 메소바데 나와 히바체 데스 리 좀바다 네메바 좀바다
So verse 6, explanations of verse 64, he says in this text, the three So first we go to extra notes. 64. So he says the three fires of death, sickness, and aging should be understood as being like the fire at the end of time, hellfire, and ordinary fire. Then we go to our own text. Then he says the three fires of death, illness, and old age should be known respectively as being like the fire at the end of time, burning all external worlds, the fires of hell, burning the hell being's body, and the ordinary wood burning fire. So destroying as they do one's body, one's health, and one's youth.
이 매일 지바다 매일 간다 이 매디기 내일 이제 강가마다 이제 내가 차는 거와
가와 차라 나기실라.
뭐야 이제 차봐. 타마만 지가라. 이제 비잖아. 안다 매일 이제 추인 이제 봐서 내려와. 어떤지 매디 내일 이제 강가다만 이제 와. 이제 매디기 와. 이 매디 내일 이제 이제 봐나 실로 와. 추이나 추와데 이제 매다 숨거서 와 추와데 이제 매다 숨 이제 매다 숨바래 딘티 매디기 내일 이제 강가 던지봐. 집어서 나시와 예수와 나시 다 진치 두개 간다 진치 두개 다고 때문에 봐서 나서 진치 두개 옆에 다고 때문에 봐 집어서 그래서 가서 간다 치와디 진치 두스나 치와디 레오디 나이 미 나와 나이 부모서 되게 다고 지하는 거 차사로 치와디에서 와 치가라 간다 내기 부모 내기 나빠스네 내기 미스네 되게 당수하게 이런 말씀 보라 당수가 굉장히 잘못했어. 거기 좋아.
가와 차세 대양 디 지된 차기 된다 대 나기실라.
그거 봐야 차도 지대야 차도
지된 게 차기 차. 나서.
뭐 야차 술만 지스기 좋아. 만 지비까지 다 진지네스 디파탄다 오르와.
So the death is similar to the fire at the end of time, because just as the fire at the end of time destroys the world, it destroys the self with the six sources. So when we talk about this fire at the end of time, then it relates to the formations of the world. So at first, at first it talks about world is formed in the beginning, and then it is burned by the fire at the end of time in the end. So then when this fire at the end of time, when this fire of the end of time destroys the whole world, so destroy the whole world at at the end of time, then there is no aggregates. There is nothing. It will burn everything. So then there is nothing to be pinpointed as my body, my eye, my ear, my nose, and etc. So basically, it burns the whole world. And then similar to this, death destroys itself with the six sources. So death destroys mind. So what belongs to I, so such as these six sources, so death will destroy all of this.
좋아지 제가 소마 좋아지 딘지메라서 딘지메가 내지게 가가 지바나지 다 진치 두개 안다 다음에 같이 리에스 와 다음에 같이 다음에 같이 왔다
자기 와서
같이 리에스 와 나와디 안다 야이메다 충분했어 와 야이메다 이와다 남이 그 동안 슈타고 지고 와 동안 슈트마 동안 나서가 내가 지금 리에스 와 나와디 야이메다 충분했어 then
he says the subject, sickness, is similar to the hellfire, because just as hellfire produces suffering, it causes the experience of various kinds of suffering. So this hellfire, then as we know that hellfire produces intense suffering, and then similarly, sickness, it causes the experience of various kinds of suffering.
gai 가서 막 그러다 말이야. 원부 지야가 창조 제사를 봐. 원부 아지야 리바 상하다 바로 여기는 창조야 제사를 하는 거야. 사례마도 얘야 원부 지야게 와. 가다 너는 막 그러다 와. 어디 담아도 내리 가서 세야 리바 집을 쓰고 와. 세라서 리바 집을 했어. 어디 나시겠어?
And the last one, he says, the subject, aging, is similar to the ordinary fire, because just as ordinary fire ripens foods, it completely matures sense powers. So this ordinary fire ripens foods, or ripens food, and then this aging, it completely matures sense powers. So this our sense powers have already fully developed, and then due to aging, it deteriorates. Our sense powers will deteriorate. So here it means, here the word completely matures sense powers. It has the meaning of it causes our sense power to deteriorate. So these three types of death, sickness, and aging. So through these, then we contemplate the faults, or we contemplate the drawbacks of samsara, and then through contemplating the drawbacks of samsara, then we develop repulsion towards samsara, and through generating repulsion towards samsara, then we develop, or we generate the thought striving for liberation. So this death, sickness, and aging, it indicates the method for us to contemplate the drawbacks of samsara. It indicates the method for us to develop repulsion towards samsara, and it indicates the method for us to generate the thoughts, or generate the mind striving for liberation. 등이 좌보에나 제리 침보에.
근데 실내다 다 간디지 여바이나 무슨가 간디지 여바이나야 무슨가 다 등에 무슨가 간디지 여바이나 다 생기랑이디 던주한 로야 마타라 이러였어 이거 단도 말했어 다 누르들다 가서 세지면서 봐.
And these fires, the fire at the end of time, and this hellfire, and this ordinary fire, so they generate intense suffering, they generate unbearable suffering, and they have these great functions. So their ability, or they have these great functions. So however great the sufferings they generate, and however great however great the functions they have, then the nature of the mind remains unchanged. So no matter how great the sufferings they produce, the nature of the mind remains unchanged. They cannot change the nature of the mind. Then next we go to verse 65. And verse 65 is under the outlines of immutable during the impure and pure state. Impure and pure state. And under this outline is verse 65. It says, the Arya Bodhisattvas, freed from the sufferings of aging, sickness, and death, and realizing the basic element nature as thusness, are liberated from the misery of rebirth and so forth. But having realized the basic element's nature, the intelligent ones display birth in order to cultivate compassion. So, and this short presentation is about the nature of the mind.
자세 보지는 이 중에메데 이 중에메데 준세를 가르치는 그 라이지 탁자 첨부기 심비토르와 컴드는 다 도마치비 되기는 거와 도마치비 되기는 인데는 그 간다 타자 첨부 심비군에 뜻 따와 인무슨 도비 제세 파와리스 와 이 도마치비 되기는데 타자 첨부 심비군에 그 도마치비 되기는 인무슨 도비 그 제세 파와지 송상 그 간다 치 등하다 나이 등하 that's someone who 말해서 이 말해서 누가 들다 좋아해서.
So the meaning of this verse 65 is, so the subject, intelligent, conquers children, are free from birth, death, sickness, and aging by the force of karma and afflictions because they are sattvas. So sattvas is also translated as heroic-minded ones, that who have directly realized as it is the basic element by conjoining it with the extensive method. So the basic element also refers to the suchness with defilements. And yeah, so the intelligent conquerors children, so the intelligent Aya conqueror children. So those Aya bodhisattvas are free from birth, free from death, free from sickness and aging by the force of karma and afflictions. So it means that in the continuum of Aya bodhisattvas, there is no suffering. And there is no suffering because they are sattvas who have directly realized as it is the basic element by conjoining it with the extensive method. Because of this reason, so therefore, he said that there is no suffering in the continuum of bodhisattvas, Aya bodhisattvas.
어제서 보고도 가다고 간다 내가 내무업이 난 치와다 나와다 가이 동안에 좋아 이나야 좋아 어제서 보고도 좋아 이나야 난 좋아라 민지 난 좋아라 하자게 민지 제와 슈치고 이 슈지와 송자 나 대왕이 다 간다 제가 그 측기네 내 민지왕들이 지와 요리 했으면 와 민지왕 좋아 공부도 좋아 이네 내 민지왕들이 제가 측대받들이 요리 했어 지와다 가와다 나이 동 인지 측대바 요리 했으면 와 측대바 로는 민지 제시도 로는 민지 제시도 들이 제가 제도가 나이도가 가이도가 들이 측대바 요리 했어.
The subject, the intelligent Aya conqueror children. So even though they are devoid of and free from birth and so forth, so they are free from birth, aging, sickness, and death, are compassionate toward migrating beings. They display the modes of birth and aging because they display them out of compassionate cause. So even though those Aya bodhisattvas, they are free from birth, aging, death, and birth, aging, death, and sickness, and however, out of compassion towards sentient beings, they display the modes of birth and aging.
어떻게 간다 측대바 요리스로 와 어쩌다 리니 요게 고아 지원 내장 다슨지 이 동안 통화 이 주와 다슨지 이나 하장 그 동안 통화 이 주도 와 그래서 하장 인지 지네 또 고아라 든지 지원해 봐 요리스로 와 인지 뭐라 하장 인지 슈친 보지 또 지원해 봐 요리스 라니 비나 내가 영원 고아라 지원해 봐 요 말이 되나요 다슨지 이 동안 통화 이 동안 통화 때 대답에 인지 무슨 원이 대파대라가 힌두 두야 체도 뜻들이 지원해 봐 요리스
So those bodhisattvas, they are free from birth, death, sickness, and aging by the force of karma and afflictions. So it means that those Aya bodhisattvas, they are not reborn in samsara due to karma and afflictions. So however, those Aya bodhisattvas, they are Aya bodhisattvas, choose to take rebirth in samsara due to compassion. So due to compassion towards sentient beings, and they are unable to bear the sentient beings' suffering, then they choose to take rebirth in samsara. So they those higher bodhisattvas are not born in samsara by the force of karma and afflictions, but they choose to take rebirth in samsara out of compassion towards sentient beings. We conclude with dedication. We dedicate these roots of virtue to the flourishing of Buddha Dharma and to the excellent happiness of all sentient beings. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to all upholders of Buddha's teaching, mainly His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to live eons long, to have excellent health, and may all their enlightened activities and holy wishes spread in all directions and accomplish instantaneously. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to our beloved teacher, Kyabsha Lama Sopa Rinpoche. May Rinpoche's holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously without any obstacle. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to world peace, and may excellent happiness prevail throughout the world. May wars that are getting worse, and may wars, conflicts, disaster, natural disaster, pandemic, diseases be pacified immediately. We also dedicate these roots of virtue especially to those who pass away. May all their negativities accumulated since beginningless time be pacified immediately and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment. Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Geshe-la, Ken. Good night, everyone.